Okay, good morning, everybody. As we go to the today, happy fourth day of Hanukkah morning. We are holding on Monday the second reading of the Torah, which is on the book of Genesis. We are holding in the portion of Miketz, chapter 41, verse number 15. Vayemer Parel Yosef and Pari sell to Yosef. Chaloim chalamti ve'upeiser einoisai. I have dreamt a dream, and there's no interpreter for it. V'ani shamati elech, I heard upon you, Lamer, saying, Tishma chaloim lifter eisai, that you can hear a dream and you can interpret it. So Rashi says, Tishma tazin, you can listen, v'tavin, and you will understand the dream, how to interpret it. So the word tishma, Rashi says, is a lashon expression of understanding, shemeya, to hear, not only to hear, but to understand, like Shema Yisrael, listen, O Israel, understand Israel. Verse number 16. Yeah, Yosef is Pari, Yosef answered Pari, Lamer saying, Belad Elikim, not I, but God, Yanesh Leim Pari, will answer the piece of Pari. So that says the wisdom is not mine, but God will answer. He will put an answer into my mouth that will bring peace to Pharaoh. Verse 17, Pharaoh spoke to Yosef, in my dream. Behold, I'm standing at the bank of the Nile. Verse 18, behold, behold, 7 cows of robust and handsome form are ascending from the Nile. And they pasture in the marshland. Verse 19, and behold, 7 other cows are descending after them. They are emancipated and they are ugly. They have meager flesh. I have never seen such a thing in the whole of the land of Egypt. Such evil. Continue. Rashi says it means that they are weak. Verse 20. And behold, the meager ones and the ugly cows devour they devour the first ones. Habrios, the 7 first ones. But they went inside of them. They didn't grow any weight. They didn't receive any, like they didn't eat. And they continued to look ugly, these ones, very skinny, like they were before they ate the 7 fat cows. And I awoke. Verse 22, I see another dream. 7 stalks are going out, which are grown ones and beautiful ones. Verse 23, and behold, 7 ears of grain, hard and thin and beaten, and the east one are growing up after them. So Rashi says the word tsonamis is Aramaic means rock. They were like wood without moisture and hard like a rock. In the Targum renders them means nothing but the withered blossom, because they were emptied out of seed. Verse 22, I'm sorry, 24. And the thin ears grains swallowed up the 7 good ear grains. I told my Khartoum, my Nam, if there ain't nobody can tell me what is this talking about. Verse 25. The dream of Pharaoh is one dream. Hu Asher Elakim Isa, this is what God is doing. Higid Lapari, he's telling Pari. Verse 26. Sheva Shabbat Tevis, the 7 good cows, Sheva Shadim. These are symbolic to the 7 years. You need Sheva Shabbalim Tevis, Sheva Shadim. 7 stalks are also 7 years. Hine Chalem Echadu, it's behold, it's one dream. So Rashi says, all of them are only a single period of 7. The reason the dream was repeated twice is that the manna, the good years, is ready, as explained to him at the end. All concerning the repetition of the dreams of Pharaoh twice is that because the matter is ready. In connection to 7 good years, it says he had told Pharaoh because it was near. But in connection with the 7 years of famine, he said, he has shown Pharaoh, God, since the matter was distant, far off. An expression of showing a vision is appropriate, but over here, it's not a vision, it's a reality. It's happening, it started. Verse 27. The 7 meagers and the ugly cows that come after Sheva Shonim, 7 years. Sheva Shibola Mareis, Dufais Academy, and the 7 ugly stalks, thin stalks, hard stalks. These are 7 years of famine. Hu Adava, this is the matter. Hashidibaite Pare, which I spoke in the Pare. Hashalakim Isa, which God is about to do. Heras Pare, he's showing Pharaoh. Verse 29. Vini Sheva Shibola, Sheva Shonim. Behold, the 7 years of coming, great plenty throughout the land of Egypt. It's going to be a years of great plenty. Verse 30. And then the famine, 7 years of famine is coming right after that. You know what's going to happen? It's going to be forgotten. The whole plenty will be forgotten. And the famine will destroy the land. So Rashi says the plenty will be forgotten. That's the interpretation of the swallowing. It's going to swallow the good. You're not going to even see you won't even remember the good because the bad will swallow the good. Verse 31. And the plenty will not be known because of the famine that will happen after him, because the famine will be very severe. So Rashi says, this is the interpretation, but it was not known that they had gone inside them because they're going to be totally forgotten. There will be no remembrance of any concept of plenty. Verse 32. Why is the repetition to Pharaoh the dream? Because it's extremely happening before God. That this is happening right now. It's happening right now. And God is hastening to execute it. So Rashi says, Mezuman, it's ready. Verse 33. Pharaoh should seek out an understanding and a wise man. And he should appoint him over the land of Egypt. This is my interpretation and my advice of the interpretation. Verse 34. And then Pharaoh should appoint officials over the land. And he should divide Egypt in the time of the 7 years of plenty. So Rashi v'chimesh means he shall prepare, get ready. How do you get ready? Verse 35. And let them collect all the food of these upcoming good years. And gather grain tachas yad parei, under the hand of Pharaoh. Oichel ba'orim v'shamru, food in the cities to keep it. So oichel, this is a noun, therefore it's a sentence aleph, this is a grammar. Tachas yad parei, in the custody and in his storehouses. Verse 36. And the food will remain as a reserve, le'eretz, to the land, l'sheva shnei harav, to the years, 7 years of famine. Ashtir beretz mitzrayim, we'll collect the food in the 7 years of plenty, and we'll put it away for the 7 years of famine. L'tikara ta'aret berav, and the land will not be destroyed in famine. Rashi says, thus the food, the gathered food, will be like any other reserves that is hidden away from for preservation of the land. Verse 37. The matter pleased in the eyes of Pharaoh, in the eyes of his servants. Verse 38. And Pharaoh said to his servants, will we find anyone like this? A man whom is the Spirit of God. So will we find such as this? If we go and seek him, will find anyone like him? Hanimsa is an interpretation of an integrative expression, as in every hey used as a prefix and vowels with a chat of patach. Hanimsa, is there such a person? Can we find such a person? That finishes the Chumash of the day. We will now go to the Tanya of the day today. Tanya Alter Rebbe continues in the chapter 4 of Tanya. Chapter 4. Alter Rebbe is talking about the Levushe HaNeshama. He's talking about the garments of the soul. Now, these three garments that are the garments of Torah and mitzvahs, even though I've thus called them garments, I thus said they are garments to the soul. So you would think that they are lower than the soul. The mitzvah is lower than the soul. Nevertheless, a mitzvah, the Torah, is above and is higher than the soul. Amas nefesh ruach neshama is higher than the nefesh and ruach neshama. As the Zohar writes, because the mitzvah and the Torah, the Reisav Kutzricha Kulachat, because the Torah and the Holy One, blessed be, is entirely one. Pirush. The Torah is the wisdom and the will of the Holy One, blessed be He. And is one, and He in His glory is one thing. As it says in the Rambam, He is the knower and the knowledge and the known, as explained in chapter 2 in the name of Maimonides. What does that mean? That all these three aspects, separate and distinct in terms of human intellect, are, as they relate to God, one in the same entity. They are all godliness. You cannot separate God's knowledge from Him. A human being, you can separate God. You can separate your intellect. You have the known, the knower. You have the knowledge and what's known. By God, they're all one entity. And this is something that's very hard for a human being to comprehend. But basically, the Eibush is one with his knowledge. He knows it from himself. That's really the expression. He knows everything from himself. Not he knows something from something else. A human being knows everything from something else. He's taught, he sees, he hears. God, he knows everything from himself. Him and his knowledge are one entity, and therefore the Torah is one with the Asian, one with God. Though the Holy One, blessed be, is called Ein Sof, infinite or unlimited. And to his greatness we can never fathom. And no thought can comprehend them at all. So therefore, how can we learn Torah? And so too we'll never understand the wisdom and the will of God. As it says, there's no searching for understanding. To understand God is impossible. It's impossible to understand God because God is infinite and God is unlimited. How is it possible as a human being, a limited entity, to understand a finite entity, to understand an infinite God? As the prophet says, when you will search to understand God, will you find? And then it says also, my thought is not your thought, says God to man. So how is it possible a human being to grasp God if God is ungraspable? Zamru. So in this, the answer to that question, the sages say, where we find the greatness of the Holy One, blessed be He, there you find His humility. That means that the Eibush, since God is infinite, God can come down in a very finite. To say God can't come in a finite, then He's not infinite. So God is infinite, and at the same time, He comes down to a finite. He comes down to a simple verse. So God is above and beyond understanding, and at the same moment, He can be understood by a 5-year-old child. Because that's the greatness of God. Where do you see the greatness of God? Is where, so to say, you see that God's humility comes down into the simple verse that every 5-year-old child can understand, a simple verse in the Torah. Well, how does that happen? Seems because God compressed. He compressed His will and His wisdom. He came down into 613 commandments of the Torah and all its laws. So the Eibush came down into the basic laws of the Torah. And then not only the Eibush come down to laws, He came down into letters. Came down into simple letters, words that are made up with letters. The combination of the scriptural Torah, which is the 5 books of Moses, Nevi'im, the prophets, Ksuvim, the scriptures. And not only that, but it went even further. The Eibush came down. And then the Eibush came, the wisdom came down into the verses of the fountain Haggadah and the Medrash of our sages of blessed memory. Because ultimately they are all Torah Shabbat Peh, the whole Gemara and the whole Halacha, they all came down. And Haggadah, Mishnah, and Gemara, etc. So much came all down into simple physical words. Why did God bring down infinity into such a finite concept? So that every soul of that's in the body of a human being, that now the soul also diminishes itself and comes into a body, so that this seichel that's physical would be able to chalasibad, this seichel, my intellect, that is so limited, will be able to grasp a little bit of the infinite of God, wisdom of God. And not only that my brains would understand it, but I'll be able to do something. I will be able to actually do a mitzvah. What an unbelievable that God gave me the capability to do something. I would never be able to do this if God wouldn't have told me I could do this and how I should do it. That I can do everything that can be fulfilled in action, speech, and thought. So the Eibush to God, so to say, brought Himself down so that I, a simple person, should be able to enclose himself in a godly context. That's where you see the humility of God. The God who's infinite, who is impossible to comprehend, who is above and beyond the world, came down in a physical thing that I, a simple person, should put on tefillin today in the morning, and by doing that, connect to Him. Because by doing the tefillin, I garment myself in a godly light. I garment that godly light. I take a garment and I put it around it. And thereby clothing itself, all the faculties in these 3 garments of thought, speech, and action, which is comprised of the Torah and the mitzvahs. And therefore the Torah is compared to water. Just like water comes from a very high place and it goes to a very low place. Water has a nature that goes down to the lowest place that it can go. It will go to every lower place. Wherever it can go further down, it will go. Because that's the beauty of Torah. Torah goes down to every place in the world. That's one of the things. The Torah is not matami. You can't be matami. You can't purify the Torah. So the Torah reaches to every dimension of the world. It elevates as a power to elevate and to change everything in the world. So to the Torah came from a place of glory. Which place did it come from? The Torah came from the God's will and wisdom. And the Torah and God is one. And at the same time, and at the same time, nobody can comprehend it. Because it's part of the Eibishter. And part of God cannot be comprehended. Nevertheless, for that infinite and unlimited mode, it came down Torah journey in a descent through hidden stages, stage after stage, in a stalshlus of the world. What's a stalshlus? So he explains, like in a chain-like order of interconnection spiritual worlds. Explain more in chapter 2. Torah descended through these levels. Until through this chain event, which is called in Kabbalah Ishtalshlus, the descent. It came down and it clothed itself in material matters. And in this corporal world, which is nearly all the commandments, kulam and their laws. So they come down from level to level until tefillin is a physical thing. It's like made from a cow, and a mezuzah and a parchment tefillin made also from a cow, and we eat kosher because that animal physically is a kosher animal, and a non-kosher animal is an impure animal. Then the B'tzrufia says Gashmi is b'diyoi, and thus the Torah itself is enclosed in the material objects, and also the physical letters combined, written in ink in a book, namely 24 books of the Torah, which comprised of Nevi'im and Kesuvim. Why? So that every human thought will be able to grasp them. The Torah has no secrets. Not only the Torah has no secrets, the Torah is not given to the wise. The Torah was given to every single man, woman, and child. Every person can learn the Torah on their levels. And that's why the Mishnah says, Ben Chomesh Lemikra. We start teaching a 5-year-old child Chumash. Even though the most greatest sage is still struggling, understanding a verse, understanding a concept, but a 5-year-old child can understand it. Rashi, when we learn Chumash and Rashi says, I wrote my pirush, I wrote my teaching for a 5-year-old child, so that a 5-year-old child will be able to understand the verse. That's the beauty of Torah. Torah is not an exclusive book. It's not written for only the sages or those special people, VIP people. Torah is written, as the Alter Rebbe writes of it, that every human thought, what level you on, what situation you on, doesn't make a difference. Whether you open a Jewish book in the past, whether you know it, or you know the halacha, doesn't make a difference. Every person has the capability to grasp them, and so that even speech and action, which are on a lower level than thought, to be able to grasp it. That's why it's important to say the words of Torah and clothe themselves in them by performing the commandments of speech and action. So that's why these 3 garments are thought, just a little bit higher than speech. And speech that's a little bit higher, more spiritual than action. But ultimately, thought, speech, and action is what God wanted, that a Jew should connect himself through Torah, through thought, understanding Torah to his capability. Not somebody else's capability, but his own capability. And speech, to be able to talk in the words of Torah, as they say in the Shema, you should say, V'dibarta bam, Yishivtecha b'veisecha, when you sit in your house, V'lechtecha b'derech, when you walk in the street. A Jew should always have words of Torah in his mouth. Should have a Mishnah about that. As the Rebbe writes, you should always have a Mishnah or a couple of words of Tanya in by heart, so you can say it by heart. And for sure, the concept of action, doing a physical mitzvah. And that ends the Tanya of the day. The Tillim of the day, the 28th day of the month, is 135, 136, 137, 138, 139. So from 135 to 139, and you would have done chitas today. Have a beautiful, happy, wonderful day. Happy Hanukkah. We're having a car parade today, starting off at Sugar Sand Park on Palmetto, going to Boomers at starting at 5:30. You can either come to the Sugar Sand Park and put a menorah on your car and be part of the parade, or come to Boomers at 6:15. Be there before 6:15, and we're going to having there a light show, music, and we're going to have Hanukkah spirit for everybody. God bless you. Happy Hanukkah. See you tomorrow, 8 a.m. We'll continue Chitas. Have a beautiful day.